This video is to provide performer training for the Hear Technologies personal mixer. The personal mixer, which will be referred to as the mixer in this video, is part of a system that allows performers in the chancel area while performing during worship services to control the individual channels and voices of the volume of the voices and instruments in the chancel area that they need to hear to perform at their best. For the purposes of this video, instruments or vocals will be referred to as voices when we discuss the adjustment of the volume. The equipment that's involved includes, in the chancel area, you'll see when we deploy the system, you'll see a hub that looks similar to this. It's a narrow piece of electronic equipment. It's purple on the front, and then on the back it has 8 jacks to connect up to 8 personal mixers or mixers. The on-off switch is on the front right side, and if the hub must be powered on for the mixers to work to function. So each mixer has a cable up to, in some cases, 25 feet, some 50 feet, and this is the cable that allows all the signals to come from the hub that are used by your mixer. The way the mixer can be mounted so that it doesn't fall and it's always readily available to you. If you turn it over and look at the back, you'll see the cable connection area, but right in the center there's a large hole that's threaded to install mounts. One popular type of mount is called a table or desk mount. These are the threads that will go into the threaded hole, and once it's tight, then this knob can be used to clamp the mixer assembly to either at the top of a music stand or to anything that's thick enough and strong enough to support the mixer, that's easily accessible to the performer. Another popular type of mount is the pole mount, which this is the threaded area of the threaded knob that would go into the hole on the back of the mixer, and once it's tight, this area would be clamped to a pole, such as a microphone stand or a music stand pole, in order to again make the mixer safely attached and accessible to a performer. The way you get sound that you're going to hear out of the system is either through headphones or earbuds on the lower right side of the system. The jacks are the 1/4 inch. They're called TRS jacks. Some folks refer to them as guitar jacks. There's 2 of them on the right side that you can connect headphones or earbuds to. Oftentimes earbuds have a smaller jack rather than the large guitar jack, and we'll have adapters available for you that you can plug the large jack in and then have the smaller jack to plug into that. It changes from the smaller to the larger. You can actually continue attaching splitters. You can split this signal over and over and continue attaching earbuds, and according to the manufacturer, you can have an entire choir listening to one mixer if that's your preference. It is possible to overload the system, and there's a fault light to warn you when that happens. We'll discuss that a bit more later. This is a very common type of output that we may use at church. Another common type of output, if you prefer, is again using the mixer to adjust the voices that you need to hear to perform your best. You can connect again a 1/4 inch guitar jack cable to an onstage speaker monitor, such as a wedge monitor or the monitors we currently use. Those are still possible to use those. It's just that now, instead of only your own instrument, you'll have the ability to adjust all the instruments on stage, so you can hear what you need to hear. An interesting input called an aux input. This is an auxiliary input that you can bring into the mixer, and only the musicians who are using this one single mixer will hear what's in this aux input. An example of this might be that if a drummer's wanting to have a metronome or a click that keeps them on beat, they could use an iPad or an iPod or some device to actually give themselves that beat, and they would be the only person on the stage that would hear it because they're using the aux in on their mixer. This is the nuts and bolts of how to use the system. I'll go ahead and tell you, when you first set the system up, set all your volume controls to the lower left position. These are volume controls. The top 6 This is a special kind of volume control, but there are two controls in particular I'd like to discuss with you briefly. Always start with these in a preset position. I've drawn them in this little diagram here. Your master volume, which turns the volume, as you turn this up and down, it turns everything up and down. Start with it in about the 9 o'clock position as shown. And then once you get the system working like you like it, you can turn the master volume up or down to whatever's comfortable to you. If you want to have more or less sound in general. The limiter is an interesting capability. What the limiter is for, and you always start with it in the 12 o'clock position, is if this is configured and working properly, and all the musicians are playing, and then some musician has a pop in their system, or if they hit a control and all of a sudden one of these becomes much louder, this controls the peak loudness that you're going to allow to hit your ears. So if you put the limiter straight up, it's a comfortable amount of sound if the volume controls here. But what will happen, there's a blue light here, and that blue light should not be on during normal operation. If you see that blue light, that means that there's a signal that's gotten too strong coming into the system. It's not damaging anything, but it means it's exceeding what you've set your limiter for. So if you see that blue light, something's wrong. Not terribly wrong, but you have the option of turning the limiter a little higher so the light goes out. And then your sound will be a little bit louder. But what you're really doing is just making sure you're aware of any signals that are coming through very distorted because they're too strong. If that light's coming on, it may be that the only thing that's happening is you're getting distorted sound from one of these channels. So your option is to start turning these channels down to figure out which one is too loud, or to increase the limiter if the sound is comfortable for you. But that's an important little tool, and I would say start with it in the straight up 12 o'clock position. If you see this blue light on, something's wrong. The simple keys, the simple volume controls to discuss would be, for example, this is probably the configuration we'll start with, and once we get the system up and running, you'll quickly figure out what's on which channels. But we'll probably start with a configuration similar to the one that's shown here. The keyboard, for example, if you want to hear more keyboard, you'll turn that up on channel 4. Rhythm guitar would be channel 6. If you want to hear the lead vocalist more or the lead guitar more, you can turn up these controls respectively. The front of house, this is the mix this actually is the signal that's coming in from the microphone at the back of the sanctuary. If you want to hear what the mix is being heard by the congregation, you can hear that here. That's the mix that they're getting from the speakers in the front of the house, which could be very different than what you're hearing once you set your controls here. Another interesting channel that's called here is called Harmonized Vocals. This is a case where we can actually mix and bring in 3 voices, for example, of 3 harmonizing vocals, actually up to 4. We can bring those in, and all of those are controlled simultaneously by adjusting this knob as shown, if we leave it configured as shown here. But just be aware that can happen that way. This is an interesting one as well. This is, as you'll see, it's labeled stereo 1 and 2, and what that means is that when you turn this knob right here, you're actually increasing both channels 1 and 2, and it's in stereo, and you'll hear the same sound on both sides of your headphones or earbuds. One of those will be the piano. We believe this will be the best configuration for starts. The other is what we're calling the beat. That'll be the drummer typically. But if we were operating without a drummer and we have to get the beat from an iPad, you would hear the iPad instead. But the point is, whatever's keeping the beat, it could just be a click that we decide to feed in here. But if you want to know what to listen to stay on beat and stay with your peers and everyone on the stage, you'll hear the beat and the piano both as you increase this stereo jack. The lights I've touched on briefly, but I'll go ahead and refer to them now. This green light, normal operation of the bus of the mixer when you're using it, is that the bus indicator is on green. You shouldn't see any other indicators on, with some exceptions that I'll touch on in a moment. I mentioned earlier that if you have too many headphones, or if you have a problem with a set of headphones, you could see a red fault light. You want to correct that fairly quickly if you see that fault light, and disconnect the headphones and figure out if there's a problem with the phones or if there's too many earbuds or headphones plugged into the system. That light should not be on. Also, I mentioned the limiter. That means that the signal on one of the channels is coming stronger than you've allowed this limiter to be set, and this means something is wrong and it's exceeding the limiter. If it's comfortable, as I mentioned earlier, you can turn the limiter up and extinguish the light and just let it play louder. and even then, you can reduce the signal by turning down the volume control to make it comfortable. But usually, the rule of thumb is if you see this limiter light, you're not hearing the quality of sound that you can because some signal is coming through too strong. And the way to find out which one it is to turn that signal down to figure out which one's creating your problem. So just the rule of thumb is just run your limiter in the 12 o'clock position. If you see that blue light coming on, there's something going on, and just bring it up, and the technicians will assist you. As I briefly mentioned, the way you turn the system off, there is no on-off button on the switch, on the mixer. To turn off all the mixers in the chancel area, the on-off switch is on the front of the hub, or to turn off a single mixer is simply disconnected from the back of the hub. And as I think I mentioned earlier, that you should go ahead and just leave the cable and the hub connected together. The cable and the mixer connected together and disconnect it at the hub. And it's because you always need a cable with the mixer, so you may as well keep it together. With that, that's the training on the Hearback Mixer. This has been deliberately fast-paced, but if you need to listen to any of the training over, it's done in such a way on video, so you can go back and play it back as often as you need to in order to understand the training and to see if all your questions are answered. So go forth and make a joyful noise.